We're here with Chris from the Mozilla project at OSCON 2014. How are you doing today, Chris?
I'm good. I just arrived, so I'm rather knackered from England, but it's good. Looks good so far.
Yeah. So, welcome to the US and welcome to OSCON.
Yeah, it's good for first time Portland for me, so I'm looking forward to getting around and seeing what the tax-free place in America looks like.
That's outstanding. So, Mozilla is regarded by some, including myself, as being one of the most fantastic leaders in the open source community because of your commitment to actual open source values, right? Like, you look at every other company, every other competing web browser, they have their own interest, and Mozilla seems to really hone down and focus on the principles that I think most people want to see a company based in open source focus on. So tell me what the latest projects that are coming up, what are you guys working on, what's going on right now, what's going to be coming up, what's happening at Mozilla?
Well, the thing about Mozilla is that we actually were born as open source. That was the only way we could survive back then after the Netscape debacle, so it is in our DNA. There's nothing that we release that is not open source, and it was tricky at times. Sometimes it's tricky to be as competitive as others, because it always fascinates me when people come like, oh, like iOS is this great experience. And you're like, well, if I control the hardware, the distribution, and the software, then it should be the best experience, and it is. It's good. It's fine that they're doing great jobs, but you cannot compare the two.
Right.
So in Mozilla, we're dedicated to open source in everything we do. So the big thing that we released in the last few years, which I focused on a lot, is Firefox OS. Firefox OS is an open source operating system for mobile devices. And instead of just going the route of saying like, okay, we bring an open source operating system out in the Western world, we targeted it directly at the places that cannot have connectivity with iOS and Android.
Right.
So the emerging markets, Bangladesh, India, Africa, Eastern Europe, South America. And this is what we've done with Firefox OS the last few years. We've got a phone here and we got phones out in the market that has an operating system that basically is ADB under the hood, like the Gonk Linux layer that you have on Android as well. We didn't have to reinvent that, it's open source, fair enough.
Yeah.
And then we got rid of everything in between and just put Firefox on top of it.
Sure.
So everything in this operating system is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So if you're a web developer, you can also start becoming an app developer.
Sure.
And the great thing about the web was that every consumer was already a maker. The view source thing, you realized how something was done, and then you started imitating it and started doing it. And the same way happens now with Firefox OS. Everybody who has Firefox installed can start building applications for Firefox OS.
And testing them.
Not only because of the technologies, but we have an IDE in the browser now as well.
Sure.
So you can go to Tools, say, I start a new application, and you can start your own Firefox OS application and run it either in a simulator on your desktop, or you can connect the phone and send the app over there and test it directly on the operating system and get the feedback from what you're doing on your computer. The price points were the biggest problem. We really wanted to make sure to make these phones affordable.
Right.
So the phones that came out, the first ones like 2 years ago in Spain, were 79 euros with already 40 euro on there for apps that you can buy for them.
Wow.
All of these things are also client billing, so you don't need a credit card. You can actually put a SIM card in there, put a 50 euro on it, and give it to your kid, and they can spend 50 euro and not like $10,000 by doing in-app payments, for example. Or you can get the apps that you buy as billed at the end of the month on your telephone bill. So these are the interesting bits when you go into that market. Out of a sudden you realize that different countries have different necessities.
Sure.
On the desktop, we still have our browser, and we innovate heavily there as well. Developer tools were a big focus for us the last half year. So we have a great set of tools in there that allows you to debug everything that's happening in your phone and in your applications as well. So there's no... I keep talking to friends of mine in Google, and we're like, there's too much magic out there.
Yeah.
There's too many things that like they work, but we don't know how.
Yeah.
So developer tools allow you to give insight into every single frame that the computer generates, every single painting that happens, and why it's slow or why it's fast. So that's a very, very important part that we do. And the big thing in the foundation that we're doing right now, and I think that's one of the things that is the most important to me, is privacy and security.
Sure.
Because with certain governments wanting to make a fast internet for people to pay more and a slow internet for other people, we're standing up against that, because we wouldn't be here without the internet.
Absolutely.
And I think while some people think the mobile environment as it is, like they don't need the web, but they still deserve the web. Everybody out there deserves to be a maker, and everybody deserves to be not only a consumer. And I think only the web and the web on mobile devices as well allows you to do that.
Now, if I can back up for a little bit, originally you said that, with companies like Apple, if they can control the stack from top to bottom, it's going to be easy for them to give a good experience. Do you believe that means that Mozilla will never be able to provide a first-class experience because you don't control things from top to bottom?
No, I don't think that top-to-bottom control is something we're even interested in. I myself would be bored doing that.
Right.
I could not work in an environment where not I'm allowed to share it with other people.
Right.
The benefit of open source is that it might not be as shiny as the others, but it's actually much more flexible.
Sure.
So new demands that come in don't have to go through like 12 different managers and get signed off.
Right.
Somebody finding a bug in Firefox can fix it themselves, can send us the patch and can get it in within like 2 weeks. In a closed environment, that's never possible. So while we're not giving the full, I always compared it with, you can go to a tailor and get yourself a suit made. That's great, that you would look awesome in that suit. It will be amazing.
Right.
But you can never give that suit to somebody else to
Right.
wear because it will look bad on those person.
If it fits at all.
Open source is basically a suit that changes according to who's wearing it.
Right.
And that's, I think, is the power of it. So while end users will go for the shiny thing first, they will also get bored of the shiny thing after a while.
Sure.
I'm, for example, I have a Mac myself. I love the hardware, but when I'm going to the Apple store and I cannot change the battery, and they tell me it takes them 5 days to change a battery, then something went wrong.
Right.
I have to be allowed to fix the things, because when I have the knowledge, why shouldn't I be allowed to do it?
Right.
The same way, if I have an application that is great and makes sense in my country, why do I have to go through a marketplace in America where somebody says, oh, that's an app that we don't care about?
Right.
Whereas in our case with Firefox OS, you can build the application, you can publish it on the web, you don't even have to go through the marketplace,
Yes.
but you can go through the marketplace if you wanted to. And that way you get your reviews, you get your star ratings and all the things that people want to do. My personal opinion is that marketplaces like that and app marketplaces, I give them another 2 years and then people will get bored of it. Because software is better than that. Software should be on demand and I shouldn't have to go through an install and uninstall process just because a new feature comes into a game, for example. Games should be like the new level gets downloaded from the internet. It should be 30K, not another 15 meg to replace it. Because in countries that we're going to right now, you pay per megabyte, you pay per minute. And it's not fair if end users have to pay a lot of money just because your infrastructure of your application doesn't work that way.
So you said that you're concentrating with this gazelle-like focus on emerging markets and stuff, but will Firefox OS take off in the US? Or maybe, I guess that might be more of a prediction, but do you have plans to focus on bringing Firefox OS to the US at some point?
We're not releasing in any market ourselves. We release with partners. So we need a mobile partner that brings the phones out in the marketplace here. You can buy this developer phone here. That is $120 and gets delivered with post and packaging included. So you can do that. For developers, we already released in America. For end users, we have to find a partner that is interested and find a niche where they actually can make money with them. We want people to be successful with Firefox OS. So that's why our partners that released it went to the countries where they actually were successful because they were the first ones to go in there. In America, let's see what happens. I think there's an interesting use case of having something like that as a second phone. Or as the operating system itself is written in HTML5, I can change the interface to whatever I want. So I could build a phone, for example, for the elderly that has 5 buttons and 5 photos of my family members by writing an HTML page. I cannot do that on any other platform. So that would be something that's interesting. Or tablets that people want to give out.
Is there anything else that you can share with us, or maybe where people could go if they wanted to find more information about Mozilla and what Mozilla is doing?
Basically, for developers, it's developer.mozilla.org. That's where we have the main page where all the documentation is going on, where you find out about these developer devices. It's also where you can go to get information about the operating systems on all the platforms that we have. Mozilla.org is still the main point where you go. The fun thing about Mozilla is that nothing is hidden. You can dial into our meetings if you wanted to, if you're really bored.
How do you do? I know that intrigues me. How do I get into a Mozilla meeting? I would love to do that.
Well, if you go to the wiki, mozilla.org, we list all the Monday morning meetings where we have, and you can basically dial in with a telephone number, or you can actually follow the wiki notes as well. Everything we do is in public, and that's quite amazing.
That is fantastic. I'm definitely going to do that. Well, thank you so much for taking time to talk with us, Chris. We really appreciate your time.
You're welcome.